Yeah. Hello everyone. Welcome to the second lecture of the Python series for BSc IT Python programming. In this lecture today, we are going to cover variables and expressions. So let's get started. First slide is values and types. So what do I mean by value? Value is a very basic thing in a Python program, and it can be either a number, string, or an object. So what are the different types of a value can we have? So it can be either a boolean, an object, a float, integer, and string, etc. So that can be there. Examples of different types of values would be hello world, number 1, 1.3, true. So these are just basic examples. Um, Further, we have how to write single line and multi-line comments. So for writing single line comments, you can use // and for writing multi-line comments, you can use three single apostrophes and then write multiple lines between them and then end it with three single apostrophes. So this would mark the end of multi-line comments. Further, moving forward, we will go to the topic of variables. So here we will have the definition, not definition, but what do we mean by variable. So it says that in programming, in order to handle multiple types of values, we need a container which can be called as a variable. So variable will just hold those values, and instead of the value directly, we can use the variable name where we require the value. Then further we will go over the point of variable being dynamic in Python. So what do I mean by being the variable being dynamic in Python is we don't need to declare the data type for the variable. So how do we declare variable in Java is int price, and in case of Python, how do we declare variable is just by specifying the name of the variable, because Python internally mm, determines what is the data type for the variable, and so it spares us from the hassle of not specifying the data type. Further, we'll go into the naming convention for the data type. So this third point specifies that variables cannot start with a number, and they can have symbols like underscore in the variable name, example value underscore. So this is how we can specify a variable. Another point would be that we cannot have any other special symbols like at the rate, dollar, or maybe star in the variable name. So that is not valid. We can only use underscore in our variable name. Then variable names are case sensitive in Python. So if you declare connection, which is everything in lowercase, and connection with the first letter as capital, so these both are different variable names. So be careful while defining variables in your program. Last point is that we cannot use keywords in Python. So by keywords, I mean some mm, some values like true and as assert. These are just examples, so you cannot use them as a variable name because they will give you an error when you try to assign a value to them. So be careful on that part. Next, further we have type conversions, which means that you have a value which is of particular type, say suppose string, and you want to convert it into an integer, so that can be done. So first point we have is we can convert a value from one data type to another. Next we have is string to int. So first is a string where we have one value inside it, and then I want to convert it into an integer, so that can be done using int. Further, we have other conversions can also be done like float to string representation of the list and other objects. So many other types of conversions are possible, but when any time you try to convert a value from one data type to another, you have to be careful that the intended data type which you're trying to convert into is already present in the original value type which you're trying to convert. So what do I mean here is I have a string and I have a number. So I'm trying to convert it into a number itself, right? So here the number is already present in the string. So this conversion would go through successfully. But if the string does not contain any number, so then what would happen is this will give us a value error. I can show you this quickly in command prompt. I'll go to Python. Then I will have a number string is equal to 1. Then I will try to convert this number string into integer. So this conversion will go through. But to specify the error scenario, I write here 1 and then I try to convert it into integer. It will not go through because the number string doesn't have value 1, but it has the textual value which is one, and this will give us a value error. So what the error says is invalid literal, which means invalid value. So the value provided to int is invalid, which we can see that we have provided one instead of the number 1. So yeah, that is the error. This is one of the errors which you might encounter while converting into different data types, so be careful. Moving forward, we have operators and operands. So these are just basics terminologies which you need to emphasize your point on points in exam when writing theory, but I think from practical point of view this might be very straightforward and might not come up very often in your discussion. So let's get started with these operators and operands. So by operators I mean they are special symbols that represent the computations like addition and subtraction. This is a pretty basic point. We learned this in the school too, the different kinds of operators which we can use with values and variables. So yeah, and by operands I mean these are the values to which the operator is applied. So for example, an operand can be 60, hour or minute. So these are operands, and operators are star and plus. So this is what is specified in this point here. Sorry, in this point here. Major difference between the mathematical language of specifying this expression and programmatic language of specifying expression is that in programmatic language you can use I would say multiple characters, variable names, but I think in case of mathematical language you only have single letter variable names such as x, y, a, t, things like that. So yeah, just a note here that there is another operator, exponent. We call this as exponent operator. So this can be used to calculate the power of any number. So here is a quick example of how to calculate the third power of 2, which is 8. So this is the way how you use the exponent operator. Further, we will move to expressions. So what do I mean by expression is just a combination of values, variables and operators. So for example, by values we mean any kind of a number, object, and variable we know that it can be declared by a common name, and operators are things like plus, minus, multiplication, division. So all of them together are called an expression. Then we have a value. Then we have an exponent, sorry. Then we have an exponent which is saying that a value all by itself is also considered an expression. Example 17. Um, Further, we have a point as a statement is a unit of code that Python interpreter can execute. So these are just some basic points to go over, but not necessarily not very much super important from the point of practical view. Lastly, we have types of statements which are assignments, print and expressions, and also I think there will be some other statements like making function calls or iterations or conditional statements. So those are also types of other statements. Next, we have the slide for interactive mode and script mode. I think I have gone over this topic in very detail in my previous lecture. So just to recap, by interactive mode, I mean that you go into command prompt, open the Python interpreter, get the chevron prompt, and you do some quick calculation. So that is interactive mode. And by script mode, I mean that you have multiple Python statements all combined in a file, and then you run that file through Python command. So that is called as script mode. So just to go over the both modes again, I will show you them. So to enter interactive mode, I just enter Python, press enter, get the chevron from I am into my interactive mode. I will exit this mode, try to run Python script in script mode. Let me see. What do we have here? Yes, this one. Copy the file path, go here, type, run this thing. So this is how the script mode works. What else is, this is just an example here. You want to extract the last digit of a number, so I can show you this quickly in Python interpreter. So I have number 123, I want to extract last digit, so I will use the mod operator, which will give me last digit. And if I want the first two digits, what I'll do is I will use the division operator here. This will give me first two digits. Yes, here we can see that the result is not as intended. So the mistake here is that I used only a single division operator, which will give me the answer in floating point. I want an integer answer, so what I'll do is I'll do 1 2 3, use float division operator, and then I will get my intended answer. So this is one point which you have to be careful, that when you have to use normal division and when you have to use float division. Yes, coming to the last part, we have our order of operations. So order of operations comes in handy when you are trying to debug complex expressions. So for example, you have multiple brackets, operators and operands, and you're trying to debug that the output which you got is not intended. So how should I change the expression? So at that time, order of operations would come into picture. In school, we heard about BODMAS. So this is how we do calculations on paper, and I think calculator also does the calculations in the same way. But in case of programming, we have PEMDAS, which is parenthesis, exponentiation, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So this is how Python programming does calculations. If you're concerned that the value given by calculator and the value given by Python would differ, so I would say that in financial systems, on both the end, by both ends, I mean that at the input and at the output there will be system. So both of them will be using PEMDAS, so there is no need to worry about the end result here. And the expressions here will be evaluated from left to right. So starting from the leftmost character, we will start our evaluation and then end our evaluation towards the end, towards the right end. So that's how um, calculation works. I guess that would be it for this lecture. Again, thank you so much for listening to me. Feel free to drop any comments or suggestions regarding the lecture, the content, and thank you so much once again, and have a nice one. Bye.